Hi everyone, and welcome to a special spooky speed build in honor of Halloween, which will of course be here in a couple of days. So this year I'm making a haunted hospital, and I decided to do this because in a speed build I put up a month or so ago, I was talking about how Halloween was coming up soon and I wanted to make some kind of build for it, but I wasn't sure what to do this year. And in the comments of that video, BMJ97 suggested that I make an abandoned hospital, which I thought would be a really cool idea because it's a little bit different than the builds I've done the past couple of years for Halloween, because I've just been doing commercial lots that aren't really, they're kind of spooky, but they're more of that cheesy Halloween spooky rather than being like actually spooky, if that makes any sense, like rather than actually feeling like they're haunted. Because a couple of years ago I made a Halloween store which just had different Halloween decorations and stuff in it that you could buy, and the last year I made a restaurant. And also, I just thought it was a good idea because you hear about people doing stuff like locking themselves into abandoned hospitals and asylums overnight because they're supposedly haunted and they want to see if they experience any paranormal activity, or I guess they're just thrill seekers, which is never something I want to do. Like that's not my idea of a good night, but that is a thing that is a thing that people do. And I just imagine this as being the kind of place that people would go to and lock themselves inside of because it's haunted, and I probably will actually give it the haunted trait. I mean, I have to. And probably also the curse trait. And I'm not sure if there's any other lot traits that really go with the whole haunted thing, but I'll have to look through and see once again. And with this build, I was really trying to go for the look of somewhere that was abandoned years ago and nature has begun to take it back, because I just find it so much fun to build builds like that, because I did do one in the past when I made an abandoned church. I think it was back in May or June or something like that. It was a while ago, but we did get all those items with the Vampires game pack that is just really good for making abandoned looking builds, because you got all the ivy and you got the cracks in the walls and the holes in the walls and stuff like that, and it's just so good for really trying to get that look. And I just had so much fun trying to really capture that with this build, because I mean it is still kind of challenging because a lot of the furniture looks like items that are new, so I kind of tried my best to like stick stuff on top of them to try to make it look like debris and all of that, and you'll see more of that once I get to the inside. I'm really excited to talk about the inside once we get there, because I did put a good bit of detail into trying to make the inside of it look decrepit and falling apart and all of that. And I'm also building this on the 64 by 64 lot on the island part of Windenburg, and I'm pretty sure this is the first time I built on the 64 by 64 lot, so I think this might be the biggest build I've made in The Sims 4, although I did make that one mansion build like, it was like 3 years ago, I think? Yeah, I think that was like 3 years ago, which was on a 50 by 50 lot, but the build itself I think was bigger than what this was, because I remember I had to make it into like a 3-part build. But I mean, I'd say this is at least my second biggest build in The Sims 4. So after this I definitely want to take a little bit of a break from larger builds, but this kind of came together. I kind of built this in a bit of a different way than usual, because usually when I build I'll just trace out the size of the first level and then I'll build the second level on top of it, so I'll start from the bottom and work my way up. But with this build, I just kind of built it, like you'll see here where I use the copy room tool a lot, because this build is actually very symmetrical, so I didn't feel like doing the windows and the wallpaper on each side because it's pretty much the same, so I just made bits of one side and then copied it over to the other side. So the copy room tool definitely came in handy for this build. Like it saved me so much time on this build, because it would have taken probably another couple of hours to make if it weren't for that. And yeah, I'm not sure how long I spent on this build. I'd say, because I got 15 minutes of footage, I sped it up 7 times, so 350, I don't know. We'll say like, there's also a lot I cut out too, so I probably 7 or 8 hours at least were spent on this build. And I also looked at a bunch of pictures of abandoned hospitals and asylums to get inspiration for this, because I was just really trying to do my best to make it look realistic, which is kind of hard within the game. I mean, it's not really the most realistic hospital because it doesn't have any ramps or elevators, which are things that hospitals definitely need. So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely not completely realistic, but I just wanted to have fun with it. And I was also kind of doing a little bit of research on like different kinds of medical facilities that had gone out of date. So rather than this being kind of what would have been like, you know, I guess like a modern day hospital, I imagine it as being more of a sanatorium, which is kind of different than a hospital. Like, I was doing a little bit of research on it, and they were more so facilities used for treating long-term illnesses, like most popularly tuberculosis. So I imagine that this was maybe a facility used to treat tuberculosis before antibiotics were invented, because that is what caused a lot of sanatoriums to either be abandoned or to be converted into other facilities, because prior to antibiotics, people, usually the best way to attempt to treat tuberculosis was to send people to places like this where they could get a lot of fresh air, medical supervision, and, you know, you just kind of hope that they would get better because of that. And I think that the location of this is also perfect for that, because it's in a rural area. It's also near the seaside, which, according to my brief bit of research, was where sanatoriums were commonly built. So yeah, you could just kind of imagine that this facility used to be used to treat an illness like maybe tuberculosis, and then antibiotics were invented, so it fell into disrepair and is now just sitting here on this rural island, just abandoned. I also looked at pictures of abandoned European hospitals because I am making this in Windenburg, so I wanted to try to keep with the European aesthetic of this world, so yeah, I thought it would look a lot better to make more of a Tudor-esque kind of looking hospital, and I actually did find a picture of one, so that's what I used for inspiration of the front part of the build, and then I kind of just try to carry around the rest of the build with a similar style, so I'll try to see if I can find that picture, because I lost track of which picture was that I looked at, so I'll see if I can find that, and if I can find it, then I'll stick that in the build here, and then if not, then there won't be a picture, so yeah, we'll see if I can do that. Yeah, and right now we're about done with the whole structure of the build, and an unfortunate side effect of doing the whole room copy tool method to try to put this together was that it kind of thought it was like a courtyard in the middle with a bunch of rooms around it, so I had to spend a good bit of time just fixing that and making it so it thought the interior was all one room. So yeah, that was the problem of doing that. The room tools kind of, or the room system of this game is kind of wonky at times, but yeah, I left all that out of the build because I figured no one would want to watch a minute or two of me just dragging walls around and trying to make everything look right there. And yeah, this is also part one of the build. I just realized I haven't mentioned that this is going to be a 2-part speed build, but you could probably figure that if you looked at the title of the build, because yeah, I had 50 minutes of footage, which was just, I would have ended up with almost an hour-long video, and I feel like that's a little long for one video, and that's a lot of commentary to do at once, so figured it'd be a little bit better, just split that up. So the next part should be up in 2 or 3 days. I'm hoping to get up in 2 days, so that way it goes up on Halloween, which would be way better than getting it up on November 1st, so yeah, I'm gonna shoot for getting the next part up on Halloween. And I was also really worried that I wasn't going to be able to finish this build by Halloween just because of the size of it, and I was worried that I'll be uploading this spooky speed build in November, or like, yeah, I was worried that with all the cats and dogs stuff going on, I wouldn't be able to upload it till after that came out. But yeah, nope, I ended up finishing on time, so we're good. Yeah, so right now we're just working on the roof, and the roofing in this game, or this build, is a little weird because instead of using a foundation, I just used one floor as the foundation because I just wanted to look like it was up really high in a foundation. I felt like that would give it more of a grand look, and the highest foundation isn't as high as the smallest wall height. So I just wanted to make it look a little bit more grand and impressive. And that unfortunately meant that since the actual build was 3 stories high, that I couldn't properly do a mansard roof on the upper level. So this weird, like, hacky way I figured out to do the roof is to just take those shelves and size them up how I needed to and just raise them up to make them the top part of the roof. So it looks really weird, but from far away it kind of does the trick. So yeah, and I didn't really need to do it on the lower roof because there is a roof that I have just above the 3rd level. So yeah, I could have just done a regular mansard roof there, but I didn't because I kind of like the look of that roof going high enough that I went into the roof on the level above it a little bit, if that makes any sense. So yeah, I even did the shelf thing there. But yeah, Halloween is coming up soon, so do any of you have any exciting plans for that? Or I guess by this point you probably would have already done your Halloween plans, because usually people do stuff the weekend before Halloween, because Halloween's during the week. But yeah, I already did the whole Halloween party thing a couple of weeks ago, and then this evening, because I'm recording this on Saturday, the day before this is going up, I'm going to visit my parents and then go to a maze that's at a farm nearby them. It's not really a spooky maze, but Still, it's in a rural area, so you don't have a whole lot of light around, and you just kind of walk through this maze in the dark with a flashlight. So even though you don't have people jumping out at you and trying to scare you and all that, I imagine it'll still be a little creepy, but I think that'll be fun. And then they also have a trunk or treat thing there, but I think that's probably for kids. I don't know if the adults are allowed to trick or treat as well. Maybe. It's also costume night, so I could wear my Halloween costume there, but I'm not sure if I want to because this year I went as Princess Daisy. Because as usual, I waited till the very last minute to buy a costume because I'm really bad at planning things ahead of time. And my boyfriend and I wanted to do the whole cheesy couples costume thing. So originally our plan was to go with Zelda and Link, but most of the Zelda costumes were either sold out or wouldn't be delivered in time for the party. So that was rather unfortunate because I wanted to go as the Breath of the Wild version of Zelda. And even the classic Zelda costumes were hard to get. And then I thought, oh, I don't know, maybe we can go as Peach and Mario, but then most of the Peach costumes were the same deal, but they're either sold out or couldn't be delivered in time. So then I was like, fine, we'll just do Daisy and Luigi because no one thinks to be Daisy, so the Daisy costumes weren't sold out. Or at least, I don't know, because there were like cheaper Daisy and Princess Peach costumes that weren't technically Princess Peach or Daisy costumes. It was like Pink Princess or Sunflower Princess. But then I did find a website that had nicer quality costumes that I wouldn't have to worry about getting ripped or anything like that. So yeah, I got a Daisy costume from there, and it was one that actually had a petticoat with it, so it poofs out, like how their dresses usually look. And I didn't realize how annoying that would be because it poofs out like probably a couple of feet each way. So I have to like scrunch the dress in to fit through doorways, and then when I was at the party, people kept stepping. I kept like hitting people with my dress, like running into them with my dress, or people would back up and then step on my dress. And then it also made it very difficult to do things like sitting down or going to the bathroom because the dress would just kind of want to go back to its usual shape and just like poof out every time I try to do something. So I don't know if that's really a good costume to wear to a maze because I'm kind of worried. I don't know how wide the maze is, but I'm kind of worried that the dress will just not like fit in the maze. I'll have to like hold it in the whole time I'm walking through the dress or through the maze. So yeah, maybe not the best thing to wear through a maze, but it is a nice costume. It's just not the most comfortable or practical thing to wear for hours. So I think I'll just skip the costume thing there. But anyway, in the build at this point, I'm working on the landscaping. So we're just getting some ivy and stuff all over the build to go with the whole decrepit and abandoned look. And I did cut out some of the landscaping and the putting in of the ivy because it was just really repetitive and it was something that I spent a while on. A lot of just sticking the same things over and over again. But it is amazing the difference that just sticking all of that all over the build really makes, because before it looked a lot nicer and then now it just looks really decrepit and abandoned. And I also stuck some of the wall decorations that came with vampires, like the cracks and all of that on the outside of the build to kind of help with that more. And out here, I'm making what I imagine to be the remains of what was maybe a hut for the groundskeeper for this place. So I was just trying to get the look of a foundation. Then I also stuck a chimney in because sometimes you hear about how the chimney will, like after something's caught on fire or has fallen apart, sometimes the chimney will just remain. So we just have a pretty much intact chimney just sitting there. And yeah, these items from Get Together really worked well for trying to get the look of this. And I noticed that there's also some other of the same pieces just in the world around the slot, so that also helped a lot with this as well. And then over here I thought that this would have maybe been like the garden hut, so I don't know, I guess they had a garden there to grow some vegetables to make food for the place from, although that's a really small garden, so I mean you wouldn't really have been able to grow much. Or I don't know, maybe it was part of the treatment or something like that, if people weren't so sick that they weren't able to move around. So I don't know if that would actually be a part of treatment or not. I didn't really look too much into what exactly they did for treatment at sanatoriums, but I don't know, I guess you could kind of imagine that. And yeah, I also stuck that fountain in for romantic garden stuff and just tried to stick a bunch of plants in it to make it look like it was overgrown. And I also used some other of the items that came with romantic garden stuff because they had the swatches for them that looked like they had moss growing on them, so it was just really perfect for going with the look of this place. And I wish there's more items like that for the inside of the build, because we do have a few things that came with City Living, and I think there's some other packs that had some more worn looking items, but there's not really a lot. So yeah, it was kind of tricky to do the furnishing, but I think in the end it still ended up going fine. I just ended up going with a lot of more neutral colors on the interior just to make it look very dark and bleak and colorless. But yeah, I'll save that for when we actually get onto the inside, which I think will be shortly. Yeah, I think in about a minute or so we'll be moving on to that. So we're just sticking a whole bunch of trees in here because I want it to look like this was just this abandoned facility sitting on this island that no one goes to and that just trees grow up in front of it. And I think the island location definitely works very well for it. So I didn't have to worry about putting in a parking lot or anything like that to kind of try to make it look realistic. Yeah, so here we're cutting to where I've already put in all the plants and such out here. So I'm just kind of finishing it up by sticking some rocks in here. So it's just got this very overgrown look, and then just sticking in some of these old looking benches, and then we got some picnic tables out here, and that's really about it that I stick on the outside. I kind of just left that as it for the outdoor furnishing. This build isn't really the most practical for gameplay because you can't use it as an actual hospital because it doesn't fit on that lot and wouldn't really fit if you tried. I mean, you could try, but it would probably... No, I don't think the building part of it would even fit on that lot. I don't remember what size it is, but... Yeah, no, it wouldn't even work to try that. But I was thinking that you could maybe use it for storytelling purposes. Like, something I was actually thinking was that it could be cool to just put it down as this abandoned lot that maybe you could have teens or young adults or like your thrill-seeking Sims visit. Like, you could have them, you know, sort of lock themselves in there for the night, like just visit there and spend the night there in tents or something like that, and you know, see if any ghosts pop up. So it could be useful for that. So I don't know, I might actually do that in one of my Let's Plays, like just have some teen Sims visit here with their friends, kind of like a dare, and just have them hang out here and see what happens and see if there's any ghosts that show up. Although I am kind of worried that they wouldn't really be able to get to a lot of things, because as you'll see once I get further into the build, I use this really small rock item that I found like all over the place, like put it on the ground all over the place because it looked kind of like crumbling bits of walls. So I thought that would work really well for here, because in the pictures I looked at of abandoned places, you would just see where there's crumbled bits of wall and debris and stuff all over the place. So that item looked pretty much like that. So I'm kind of worried that because of how much I use that it blocks them the item so they can't get to it. And I'm not really sure, because they might still be able to use it because they're pretty good about using things, but I've noticed stuff like if you use that one backpack clutter item that came with Parenthood, the one with the books and socks and all of that, if you stick it too close to a bed, they can't actually get into the bed. So I don't know if that item functions the same. So that's something I have to test a little bit, but even if that is the case, I'm not going to take it out of this build because it's more so meant to be a build for show rather than something that you could actually really use. But I mean, if it does still work despite that, then even better. Like, you know, it'd be even better if you could actually get some use out of it. But yeah, we are into the interior now, so I'm just trying to stick some lights in everywhere. I cut out the bit where I was figuring out the floor plan because that did take a bit of time to figure out, but yeah, I did use that one tile that came with City Living because it just looked really worn, so something that was definitely perfect for this build. And originally for the wallpaper, I was going to just use regular wallpaper like what I have now and just stick the wall hole items that came with vampires just all over the place. But in a little bit, I ended up changing that to the more worn brick wallpaper that came with Dine Out because I just realized that looked a whole lot more interesting than just sticking this wallpaper all over the place. And I was realizing that since we only had 3 of those items, that it just was getting really repetitive to try to arrange them all over the place. So yeah, to me, that brick wallpaper, which you'll see in a little bit, looks kind of like brick that was painted over in the past, but then the paint kind of faded on it or chipped off, and maybe it has some mold or moss growing over it, so it just went so well with this build. And here I am just trying to arrange some seats in here to look like a waiting area. And while it does look neat and perfect right now with how it's arranged, I do go back in a little bit and just slightly twist things because it just didn't seem right to have the chairs look so perfect in this place that was abandoned. And I tried not to put a ton of furniture all over the place because I imagine that some of the furniture may have been stolen from the place or may have been removed or something like that. So I didn't want to make it look fully furnished. So there's not a whole lot of wall paintings. Like there's some wall paintings just sitting on the floor. I was trying to make it look like they're propped up against the wall, but yeah, it's not really a super well decorated place apart from the ivy that I placed all over it. But as far as the rooms and such that I have in here, on the first level we have this waiting area, and then the room off to the left of it or ahead of it is supposed to be the cafeteria, which is kind of an odd shape for the cafeteria, and then to the left of that is the kitchen, and then behind the waiting area is this area that it's kind of like an activity area, which I imagine was maybe a TV room or just a game area. So I put the Don't Wake the Llama table in there, and then there's also, I think, a foosball table and some bookshelves. So I thought of that as maybe like an activity area for patients who are recovering and are well enough to get up and do things, to just go into and just do some things to occupy themselves with. And then also on this floor is just the surgery room and the tests, like the treadmill and the x-ray machine and the chemical analyzers and all of that. And then we also have a couple of small offices on here. And then the upper level is just a mix of exam rooms and what I imagine to be more rooms where long-term patients would stay. Yeah, so here I am just sticking in the debris. I realized that the one item that you get, I think you have to put in the show hidden objects sheet to get to that. But yeah, they're just these, it's like wooden, it's something to do with the sculptures. Like, I guess if your sim destroys a sculpture or they do a bad job of making a sculpture, it turns up as that. So I just use that all over the place to look like wooden debris. And then you can see that rock item that I was talking about placed all over the place. So now we're on to the cafeteria, which is just a really awkward long shape, but I wasn't really thinking about how I was going to lay out the interior when I was building outside of it. So it was a little hard to just try to fit in where everything was gonna go. So I figured one side could be the cafeteria and the kitchen, and it just was awkwardly fit in like this. So yeah, at first I was using those picnic tables for the seating, but after I get all the ivy and all of that in, I end up changing that because I wasn't really happy with the look. I just felt like it didn't really fit in with the look I was going for. I mean, I guess some hospital cafeterias have tables like this, you know, I know schools and stuff have tables like this, but it just kind of made me think of like kindergarten or something like that, or like an elementary school. So I was like, I think we'll change that, because I think that was also the picnic table that came with toddler stuff, so that was probably also why I was thinking of preschool. So yeah, I just changed that to I think it was the table that came with bowling stuff. Yeah, this one. And then for the chairs, I used the cool kitchen stuff, which I did because in my mind I was thinking that after this place was no longer used as a sanatorium, maybe it was repurposed as something else and then eventually abandoned in the 50s. So we've got kind of a mid-century modern styling with the tables and chairs in here, because, you know, I imagine that they were from the 50s when the place was abandoned. So right now I'm just going around and sticking all the chairs in, and I didn't think it would look right if they were all just perfectly arranged at the table, so I just filled in all the slots for the chairs at the tables and then just stuck in the 4 chairs, just twisted around different ways to look like they're shoved around over the time, and the tables are also crooked as well. So I like that look. I thought that was a pretty good look once everything was all done. And then in the corners we have some other chairs just stacked up here, and then some... Oh, right. I thought I was looking at the other side for a minute, but yeah, we've got some, I guess what were supposed to be old food menus. And there we go, changing it to a darker color, and then of course finishing it off by getting all the debris in. So I was also trying to make it look like there was debris on some of the tables and the seating in this hospital, because I thought it would be a little weird if you had debris all over the floor and it somehow just missed falling on the chairs and tables that were in this place. And then we've also got that gross food rug in here. I think I leave that in. Yeah, so I guess some old rotten food from 60 or 70 years ago, which is just kind of gross. And we've also got the city living cabinets and counters in here because they have that old and worn look. And I might go in and settle the counters to be dirty, because if you type in the testing cheats, which is, what was it? Testing cheats enabled true or something like that. You can go in, you can set counters and plumbing and everything to be dirty, which really goes with the look. But the problem with that is that as soon as you have a sim go into a place where you've done that, they just decide to go right to cleaning up all the counters and all the plumbing, which is super annoying if you want to actually have them do other things. So that's kind of why I think about not doing that. Like, it'd be cool if you could just set the items like that and the Sims wouldn't want to mess with it. I mean, it's good that they want to keep the place clean, but still, it's just kind of annoying when you're trying to do a thing and they're like, nope, I'm gonna go in here and clean this counter off at this abandoned place that I don't really even care about. So yeah, we're just about done with the kitchen right now, getting all of that good old debris in there. So we've got some crooked old food shelves and just some random jars of pickled stuff from the past and some tables that are turned slightly, and of course getting all the ivy in. I had a lot of fun. Well, I don't know, at times putting the ivy in was kind of tedious, but it was also kind of relaxing to just stick it in all over the place because you just kind of zone out a little bit and stick it in. And it was kind of tedious though, because in each room I would put some of the ivy in, then I also put in the water stain item that came with vampires, and I also put it in the red color because to me it kind of looked like blood, which I felt gave the place an even creepier look. And we also got the cobwebs and the cracks in the walls that I would just put into every room. So that did make the furnishing take a bit longer to do. But I believe that's it for the cafeteria, so now moving on to the bathrooms. I was looking at some other tiles because there were some of those dated tiles that came with Get to Work, which I thought about using, but they didn't look quite worn enough for my liking, so I just used the city living tiles all over the place. And I wish there was some, I don't know, maybe if you type in the show hidden objects cheat, you can somehow get like some burnt flooring or something like that, but it would have been kind of cool to have something like that to stick around the floor to make it look a little bit grosser than it is. But yeah, we're just working on this. It was kind of weird though, because I usually like to have mirrors above sinks in bathrooms, because usually that's how it is, but there was windows in the bathroom, so I ended up just sticking a mirror off to the side next to the sink so there's not one actually there. And I also stuck some debris over on that toilet, like some debris just fell into the stall and fell in the toilet too, so I thought that was kind of neat. And just getting the ivy in. I think at a few points I also stuck the water stain item over the windows to look like the windows were dirty, but I didn't do that everywhere because it would have been a little too time consuming to stick that over every single window. But we're on to the last room that I furnished in this part, which is that activity room that I was talking about before, which was kind of an awkward space to furnish because it was just big and kind of a weird shape, so I was trying to figure out how to fit everything in. And yeah, I realized, because I was talking about this being a place that was used in I would imagine, you know, would have been made in the 1800s sometimes, and I was talking about how this is a TV room, which doesn't exactly make sense, because, you know, they didn't have TV back at that time, but I guess, I don't know, maybe like whatever it was used for in like the 50s could have had this as a TV room or something like that, or I don't know. I put a TV in here, but maybe I should just take that out. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. I'm probably just thinking way too much about this, but yeah, we just got a TV in here, and I was going to have it on a table originally, but I ended up just putting it up on a shelf like this, so there's a couple of shelves like this in this room, and then there's some chairs just sitting around it, and I also stuck some graffiti throughout the place, because I imagine that the teens who came here would have maybe just tried to put some graffiti on the walls and that sort of a deal, so that was another thing, just make it look run down. Yeah, so we just have the seating in here, which is all crooked looking. But I don't really have much else to say about the build in this part, so as usual, if you want to download it, there'll be a link to do so in the description. I also have stuff in there on how to find it in-game. And if you wanted to see the next part, keep an eye out for that on Halloween, or if it's not up on Halloween, then it should be up the next day, but I should hopefully be able to have it up on Halloween. But anyway, that's going to be all for me, so I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and bye!